Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. I figured that I could do smart, so it's the name of the show. I just did some kind of like homage to Sammy Sosa. I don't know why, but I did. Hello, welcome in. We have so much to get to. I will tell you right off the start, and I know this is going to warm the cockles of this guy's heart, but I miss video guy Amadeo. He's out on his trip down to the south or whatever, and he sent me a couple of notes along about a late night trip to Buc-ee's and going through South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. And I had to put the thumbnail together today for today's show. I forgot how annoying that can be. And I'm just sitting here thinking about how grateful I am to have video guy Amadeo doing all the short form stuff. I probably will not turn any of today's episode into short form stuff, but then again, I am insane, and I do have a soccer practice to sit through tonight, so maybe I will. But I want to welcome everybody in. Hello. I hope you're having a great day. Hope you're having a fantastic day, a wonderful Wednesday. And I'm going to note something really important off the top of today's show. There are so many things happening in Philly sports. I just want us all to take a very quick moment to be grateful to the sports gods that we are in a position where there are multiple things happening around multiple teams in this city, and that we are out of the doldrums of the summer. And I know that we love the summer. I know that we love the warm weather. I know we love going and jumping in the pool or playing in the sprinklers or hosting people for margaritas and tacos out on the Blackstone or maybe some smoked wings. But I want you to just, for a second, be grateful with me. Can we all just have a moment here where we all bring it in together and we are all just very grateful for the fact that, like, the awful days of the summer where it's like, I guess we have to talk about the Phillies game from 2 days ago. Those days are over because we have the Eagles. There's some news, some breaking news that we'll get to here in a minute about an impact player on the defense going on injured reserve. We have some boneheaded takes led by Mike Florio, which we're going to get to. We have a nice little media war between Greg Olsen and Dave Portnoy. We have Flyers stuff to talk about, a potential catastrophe being played out in net right now for your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. The Sixers dropped new jerseys today, and I saw gaslighting and gatekeeping around those Iverson throwback jerseys. So I want to get to all of that and maybe even more. Video guy Amadeo is here, says hello from Epcot. I need to know where you're at, Amadeo. Which country are you in? Which beverage are you currently consuming? We need to know. The people need to know. Should we have video guy Amadeo check in from Epcot 610-632? But maybe. He has the availability to hop in the studio if he wants. But Greg Bondarenko's right, though. Which country are you in, Amadeo? We got to know. And JH is right. He is now Florida man. So Amadeo's down there. Good for him. And we are all here. Now, I'm going to start with the bad news. Okay, this is news that I did not intend on breaking on the show. And I'm sure some of you have seen it, but many of you are working throughout the day and you happen to turn on the Russ Joy Show on YouTube or Facebook or X, wherever you watch it. Remember, if you're on X, you have to click the video first, go to Periscope mode, and then if you leave a comment there, I can pull it up here on the screen. I am actually going to bring the comments up over here as well. I just want to remind everybody that, like, sometimes we have to have bad news. And whether you're still at your workday, maybe you're tuning into this show from class. I would hope not. If you're in high school, I don't know if you should be watching the show. If you're in college, you should probably pay a little bit more attention in class. But if you're here, thank you for joining us as well. If you're unemployed, or as some people like to call it, between jobs, thank you for being here as well. But I do have to break some bad news here for those of you who might not have been plugged into the interwebs over the last half hour or so, and that is that the Eagles are going to be without Nolan Smith. Yes, I know it is disappointing. Yes, I know it is somewhat depressing. Adam Schefter broke the news. Sources: Eagles outside linebacker Nolan Smith strained his tricep Sunday and now is expected to be sidelined through the team's November 2nd bye. He could return for the Monday night, November 10th game at Green Bay. Smith had a tricep surgery a week after the Eagles' Super Bowl win and aggravated the injury last week. The plan is now to let him rest, then return after the bye. So let's look at this from a holistic view. Let's not be a prisoner of the moment, okay? Nolan Smith tore his tricep in the Super Bowl, played through it like a bona fide stud. In the same game, Brandon Graham, who had previously torn his tricep, retore his tricep in the Super Bowl, continued to play through it, bona fide stud. Nolan Smith was back a lot earlier than I think anybody expected him to. He's very fortunate that he did not re-tear the tricep. That obviously would have cost him the entire season. Is there a question to be asked about whether or not he should have been playing this early in the season? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Do I think it's smart that the Eagles are shutting him down, effectively forcing him to be shut down for the next month or so? Yes, it is very smart. And they also get to do so knowing that this butts up against the bye week, and he could be back for a likely critical showdown in the NFC between the Eagles and the Packers on Monday Night Football at the historic Lambeau Field. Whoop! So, does it stink to lose Nolan Smith? It does. Is it better to lose him and have him temporarily out versus have him lost for the season? Of course it is. So, this is bad news and it's disappointing, but at the same time, we also have to kind of take a moment, take a breath, and realize this could have been significantly worse. So that's a little bit of bad news to come out of the Eagles world today. They lose Nolan Smith, at least for the next month or so. But hopefully he'll be back and everything will be okay. JH already comes in here and says, oh God, we are so cooked. No, it's okay. We can lose one player. We can't lose that many more players, though. One player is enough. We don't need a ton. Now, I do know that the Eagles put, I think, a couple of other players on injured reserve as well. And remember, injured reserve works a little bit differently now where you only have to shut a guy down for 4 weeks. It's not a season-ending thing. So the Eagles actually put this out. So we'll go to the Eagles' full breakdown here of players that they've called up from the practice squad and players that they put on injured reserve. Here we go. Roster moves from the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles. Jacorian Bennett, who played some very big minutes down the stretch in the comeback win against the Rams, made a few really smart plays on the ball in the secondary. He goes on injured reserve. Darius Cooper, wideout, also goes on injured reserve, and so does Nolan Smith. They've also signed Lance Dixon, Eli Ricks, and Quez Watkins to the practice squad. So you got Quez Watkins back under the umbrella. Marcus Epps has been brought up to the active roster along with Cam Latu and Perry Nickerson. So the Bennett thing is actually kind of disappointing because I thought he played pretty well down the stretch for this team. That's a little bit of a disappointment, especially for a secondary that could use some help. And losing Nolan Smith sucks. There's just no getting around it. But again, we're thankful that it wasn't a season-ending injury. Now, I think that it is important to have a good, wee little bit of a transition here. That kind of makes a little bit of sense now. So I said that the Eagles secondary could use help. And, there's a guy who used to play for the Eagles who, oddly enough, became available because the team he was traded to, the Houston Texans, decided to cut bait and send him away. And that's none other than fan favorite CJGJ. Now I'm going to take the comments down here for a second, and then we'll bring it back up. So, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who I'm a big fan of. I like CJGJ a lot. I like the fire that he brought to this team. You remember where the Eagles were, Super Bowl 57. They had a lot of swagger to them. They got rid of CJGJ. He went to Detroit the following season. The wheels fell off for the Eagles. They brought him back. He wins a Super Bowl, great moment. And then he's like unceremoniously dumped for an offensive lineman who ultimately doesn't even play here anymore. So that wasn't great. On aggregate, I think the Eagles went from a 6th-round pick to a 5th-round pick. Both players involved in the trade have been cut by their respective teams. So CJGJ hits free agency. And there was this thing going around about how there's something in the CBA that says if you've traded a player to another team, that player has to play at least 4 games in order for that player to return to the team that traded him. And then there was another thing going around about how, if the team that you were traded to cuts you, chooses to cut you the way that Houston did with CJGJ, that he could theoretically come back to Philadelphia. I'm going to go out to this Aaron Wilson set of tweets, though. We're going to start with the original, and then we'll go to the quote tweet. Aaron Wilson reports, Texans released CJGJ after friction behind the scenes with him complaining about his role, wanting to blitz more, per league sources, and even communicating that he wanted to be traded. So here's your quote tweet of the original tweet. It says, among the issues Texans experienced behind the scenes with CJGJ, per sources, he was critical of teammates in the secondary and didn't like his role. It was a locker room issue, and ultimately this just wasn't a good fit for the team and for a talented player. It's also worth noting the Texans are 0-3. It's also worth noting someone else reported that apparently CJGJ wasn't happy with the size of someone else's contract. I have no idea what that means. I don't know who that is on their defense or whatever that he'd be upset with. But like clearly it didn't work out there. I'm a big fan of CJGJ, but I also don't work with him. I also don't have to like go to the facility with him every day. He's been cut by a good number of teams or traded by a good number of teams over the last 5 years. At some point, you say common denominator might be the player. Player's very good. For an Eagles team that could desperately use help in the secondary, and now that Bennett is going on to injured reserve, does that now open the door here to CJGJ coming back? I say no. And the reason for it is simple. It very much seems like Vic Fangio did not want CJGJ here anymore. And if it's not Fangio, maybe it's Sirianni. And if it's not Sirianni, maybe it's Roseman. Maybe it's a combination of all three or two of the three. But like when you're coming off of a Super Bowl win and you jettison a guy who was viewed as a very important guy on the defense that helped to deliver a Super Bowl and who's not an old guy by any stretch, you would think that the Eagles would be like, hell yeah, we want to keep CJGJ here. We want him to be a focal point of our defense, and we want to continue to bring some year-over-year stability to this team. The Eagles, like almost as quickly as they could, jettisoned him to Houston. And again, they didn't get back a stud player in exchange. It ended up being a guy that they cut anyway. I see this from Jim Cochran over on YouTube, says, liked him here, but teams dumping him every year seems like a pretty good hint that he's not great for a locker room. Again, it's hard for me, right? Because I'm not there. I don't report on the team. I don't talk to players on the team or coaches or front office people. It's a little bit different with the Flyers. But like with the Eagles, I don't cover them in any capacity. So I can't tell you that, even from like off the record conversations or on background, people say they don't like him. But it does seem like after a while, if this many teams dump you year after year and you're still viewed as a very good contributing player to a defense, one would think that perhaps there is something up with the player. Perhaps there's something up with the attitude of the player. We wish CJGJ the best. I just don't see a scenario in which he returns to Philadelphia, but we will see. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. So if you were looking for a little bit of good CJGJ reunion stuff, I got bad news for you. I got nothing there. Now, speaking of gotten nothing, all right, nothing is what apparently happens between the ears of Mike Florio. Because Mike Florio went on a Dan Patrick show on Monday after we were done our show, I believe. It might have been a little bit before. But Mike Florio went on to Dan Patrick's show, and he spewed one of the dumbest takes ever. And in fairness, on this show, I tend to pull up a bunch of the people from the national media from time to time, right? We'll talk about something that's being said over on Get Up or First Take, or maybe we pull something from Wake Up Barstool or from First Things First or from some of the canceled shows over on FS1. And we like do a little bit, we try to be fair, but we do a little bit of a dissection of what's been said. Mike Florio went on to Dan Patrick's show and said one of the dumbest things I have heard any media pundit say in at least a calendar year. And if I even tried to give you a hint of what stupid thing Mike Florio said, there is zero chance you would get it right. Mike Florio went on to Dan Patrick's show, a nationally televised show, and threw out a conspiracy theory that the reason Jordan Davis picked up the ball and ran it back for a touchdown at the end of the game that the Eagles came back to win 33-26, 33-27. 33-26. No, it was 33-20. 33-27. 26. It doesn't matter. It kind of matters. Whatever. Don't get caught up in semantics. Don't get caught up in the details. Mike Florio has this idea in his mind that the reason that Jordan Davis picked up the ball and ran it back to the end zone had nothing to do with the fact that Jordan Davis was trying to ice the game, had nothing to do with the fact that Jordan Davis apparently thought it was really important to go back and score 6 points. No. Mike Florio's contention is that Jordan Davis picked up the ball and ran it back to the end zone because of gambling, because of sports betting. I'm going to let him bury himself. Please enjoy.
Gambling, and I'm watching the Eagles-Rams game.
I know exactly where you're going. Jordan Davis. And here's the reality.
Here's the reality. Uh-oh. It's never great when somebody starts with here's the reality. All right, Florio. Good luck. We're talking about gambling, sports betting. Jordan Davis in a split second blocks a field goal picks up the ball and decides, you know what? I think we'll cover the spread if I run this back for a touchdown. All right, that's Mike Florio's contention. Let's go.
This is the direct result of the NFL going from hating and shunning anything to do with gambling to jumping right in bed and loading the pockets. They're the guy in the...
What the hell is he talking about?
Here's the facts. Here's the reality. All right? Here's the reality. Sports betting is the reason that Jordan Davis picked up the ball and ran it back to the house. Sports betting. Jordan Davis was cognizant of it, and he ran it back. All right, Garrett, maybe he'll make sense of it.
You know, the old game show where you go into the booth where the money's flying everywhere.
Yeah.
They're just grabbing
Love
as
that
many
game.
dollars as they can while it's there. But yeah, we're all aware now of the point spread. We're all aware of the ramifications. And how...
The ramifications of what, Mike Florio? Again, he says, Jordan Davis. All right, we still haven't gotten there.
How many millions of dollars changed hands because Jordan Davis decided to do not the smart thing. The smart thing...
Jordan Davis is a stupid player, according to Mike Florio. Jordan Davis is not a smart player. He's not a very smart guy. He's over 300 pounds, and he's not a very smart guy. Believe me, he's not a great guy. Jordan Davis, he should have picked the ball up, and he should have rolled over because he's very large and said, go ahead, Tubby, go down to the ground, hold the ball nice and tight against your body, end the game. Mike Florio, out. Moronic. All right, continue.
Game's over. Just fall down. You got the win. Because in theory, somebody comes up from behind, does the Don Beebe to Leon Lett, the ball goes out, the Rams take it the other way. The smart thing to do.
Oh, okay, so now we're going off of what's that called? An anomaly. Oh, yes, the thing where the exception to the rule is so easy to point out because it doesn't happen often. So now it just jumps to front of mind when you're talking about a hypothetical situation. So we're going exception to the rule. So Jordan Davis is supposed to see the ball as it's rolling in front of him and in a split second go,
I don't want that to happen to me. If I pick this ball up and I start running it the other way, somebody could catch me and punch the ball out, and the Rams could recover it and take it the other way and win the game.
Was go down. He runs it in for a touchdown. The Eagles cover. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, the Eagles covered. Uh-oh.
And it was perfectly legitimate, but when you open Pandora's box, this is the kind of stuff that flies out, and people are aware of this. So,
yo, I'm sorry. If there are kids in the car, cover their ears. 3, 2, 1. The fuck is he talking about? What?
We're all aware of it. Everyone's aware of it.
No one gives a shit, Mike Florio. Not a single soul. What are you talking about? Jordan Davis didn't make a smart play because he didn't just fall on the ball. And then you're going to somehow conflate that with the idea that sports betting has somehow been involved in the decision-making process of Jordan Davis scooping the ball up and running it back the other way for a touchdown. You know how stupid that is? This is an agenda-driven appearance on the Dan Patrick Show. This is an agenda-driven diatribe by Mike Florio, and there's nothing about it that makes even a modicum of sense. What are we doing? Mike Florio, with all due respect. What? Jim Cochran says, Russ, if you ever try to make a point like Florio is here, it's time to scale back your shows. He's obviously making things up because he has nothing interesting to talk about. Yeah, God forbid there was like a good week 3 of NFL action to talk about. No, we're going to somehow talk about a very exciting play and a comeback win between two of the best teams in the NFC. We're going to turn that into some nonsense. And what are we doing? Insane. Ford's right. Says, dude, Jordan Davis isn't thinking about gambling. He's instinctively running with the football in a football game. Correct. So dumb. Fawcett also asks, aren't players taught to play to the whistle? Indeed they are. I don't know what we're doing here. Brian Knowlton over on YouTube says, I don't even have to listen to it, and I have no dog in the Eagles fight, but this doesn't make sense. Correct. All right, so there's your Mike Florio of the day. I mean, I almost never go out to Florio because that is just such an asinine thing to do, to say, to think, to feel. Speaking of asinine things, can we have a really quick conversation about what happened on Tuesday night between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Marlins? Can we have a conversation about it? Because the Phillies did something that they should not have done. The Phillies blew an absolute gem by Cristopher Sanchez. Cristopher Sanchez gets his 200th strikeout against the Marlins. He's having a great season. He's been one of the best pitchers in the National League. To this point in the season, he started 31 games. He's gone almost 200 innings. He's at, 196 and a third inning. He's only allowed 169 hits. He's got a 2.57 ERA. He's got 44 walks compared to 204 strikeouts. A whip just over 1 at 1.085. He's had a fantastic year. And he goes out last night and he twirls up 7 scoreless innings. Only allows 3 hits, has 6 strikeouts, only a single walk. All you have to do if you're the Phillies, finish it out. Finish out a very strong performance. Let's get 2 good innings out of the bullpen. 2 innings out of the bullpen. And you know what? We know that Juan Duran is so good that really it's only get 1 inning. We only need the 8th inning to be done correctly. And then things are going to be hunky-dory. We just need 1 good inning out of the bullpen leading to Duran. Yeah, no, didn't happen. It did not happen. Because David Robertson comes into the game, gives up a run. Duran comes into the game, and he gives up a game-tying home run. And then it goes to the 10th. Kerkering gives up a run. Lou Trevino comes in, gives up an unearned run. And Phillies lose 6-5. And I hate the fact that I stayed up for it. I hate the fact that I stayed up for this Phillies game. Because I knew as soon as it went to a rain delay, you just kind of knew things were going against the Phillies at that point, right? You're in the 9th inning. You just scored a run. You're going to hopefully force extra innings or get the win in the 9th. And then we go off to this very long, seemingly never-ending rain delay, and you come back, and the team looked disjointed. You also in this game have JT Realmuto pick up an injury to his finger, which thankfully the x-rays said was negative at the game. And so now we have to, kind of wait patiently to find out if he's going to be able to play over the next few games or if the Phillies are just going to shut him down until the playoffs. As things stand right now, they have 5 games left. They have 2 left against the Marlins, and then they welcome the Twins to town for a 3-game set to close out the regular season. If it's me, I'm probably trying to be as cautious as I can with JT Realmuto. They are going to end up with a first-round bye. They are going to play their first series in the divisional series. Bryce Harper earlier this week essentially said, anybody who has the concerns about the wild card round, about getting cold or whatever, they need to just kind of throw that out of their minds. But it is probably a fair point in time to note the fact that the Phillies have lost 4 of their last 5 games. They lost the series finale against the Dodgers 5-0. They beat the Diamondbacks in the series opener in Arizona 8-2, and then lost games of final scores of 4-3 and 9-2. And then you blow this Cristopher Sanchez gem, go to the 11th inning, and you lose 6-5. Not ideal. And that's why you have people like Ford who says, I tried being positive with the Phillies, but here we go again. Not great. Not great. Amadeo says magic number for the bye is 1, so essentially these games don't matter. I mean, get a win or get a loss elsewhere, and you clinch the first-round bye, and you feel pretty good about it. It is weird, though, because you go from the team being so incredibly hot to now it feels like, uh-oh, are we going to start seeing all of the old skeletons kind of come out? Are we going to start to see a lot of the ghosts of postseasons past start to dance in our minds and start to make us think that something is inevitably going to go wrong? I'm not there yet. I don't want to live in that world. I think it'll be okay. Now, I have 2 other things that I want to get to. One has to do with the Sixers, and one has to do with the Flyers. We're going to wrap with the Flyers because there's a good amount of stuff to talk about there. But before we get into anything else, we are going to go over to the Sixers really quickly, and it's not because of anything the Sixers did on the court, but this is something that many of you probably saw today, or at least I would assume many of you saw today, and that is that the Sixers dropped the jerseys that we've all expected them to. The Sixers dropped the throwback Allen Iverson black jerseys. So here's young Joel Embiid. It's funny, we keep talking about the fact that Embiid looks skinnier, and there have been a ton of images out there of Embiid looking significantly skinnier. We also got our first look at VJ Edgecombe in this jersey as well. Here's young VJ. The picture they used of Jared McCain was kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know why they did this, but it almost feels like somebody was pulling a prank on him. I want you to take a look at the picture first and tell me if you can figure out why this is so sad. It has nothing to do with Jared McCain physically. It has to do with what he's sitting on and what's sitting on that machine. All right, we're done. Right here. What the hell is this bar? Is that like 10 pounds? Can we get a little zoom? 25 pounds on each end. I mean, I have to imagine that Jared McCain could bench press more than 50 pounds plus the bar. I would certainly hope so. I'd be a little bit concerned if an NBA player can't bench more than 50 pounds plus the bar. That would be somewhat troubling. But anyways, so we got McCain, we got Embiid, we got Edgecombe, and we also had the guy who, I mean, we all kind of know this, right? But this is the guy who I would argue is probably close to being the face of the franchise in Tyrese Maxey. And Maxey apparently was one of the leading forces. If you remember, when he signed his max extension, his max deal, they had the black Iverson jersey at his like introductory signing or whatever of the max contract. And that was where we started to get the feeling that, oh, the black throwbacks might be coming back. So it got people thinking and it got people talking. And I saw one of the weirdest tweets I've ever seen today. And I called it out on Twitter, and I will continue to call it out. I'm actually I will give some oxygen to this take because it wasn't one that was done in bad faith, but it's one that I thought was absolutely nonsensical. So this person, Dragonfly Jones, over on Twitter, quote tweets a John Clark tweet showing Embiid wearing the new throwback black jersey. And this guy or gal or somebody says, iconic. I see these unis and think about how Iverson gave everything he had in that jersey. The same jersey he was covering his busted mouth with one game and spitting blood into it because he didn't want the refs to bench him for bleeding. Embiid doesn't deserve to wear that jersey, to be honest. Now, it has become very, very fashionable to shit on Joel Embiid. It has become very fashionable to diminish what he's accomplished in his career. It is fashionable now. It seems like the in thing to crap on Joel Embiid because he can't stay healthy. Many of the injuries that he sustained are not his fault. An orbital bone fracture caused by the shoulder of Markelle Fultz, not his fault. A navicular bone break, not his fault. Back issues, not his fault. Meniscus tears, not his fault. We can make an argument, I guess, if you wanted to, that he did pack on some weight, and that's going to be harder on your joints, specifically your knees, and that maybe if he hadn't bulked up, if he hadn't gained that weight, he might not have had as many knee issues as he had. That might be fair. But I will also point back to the fact that Joel Embiid has played through almost all of these injuries, not the navicular bone break, but he's played through back issues. He's played through multiple orbital bone fractures where we've made the joke about the Phantom of the Opera mask. He has played through meniscus tears. He has played through issues with his fingers. He played through Bell's palsy. Do we remember the series where Joel Embiid's eye couldn't blink and half of his face was sagged from Bell's palsy? Do we remember that? Now, I get it. If you want to throw out this idea that Embiid can't stay healthy and hold that against him for a legacy thing, or if you want to have an argument about who's the best Sixer in recent memory or of modern times, and you want to say Iverson belongs on another level because even though they've both been a league MVP, Iverson led his team to an NBA final. They gave Kobe and Shaq their only loss in that postseason. You can do that. If you want to make the argument that Iverson was this warrior who gave everything he had, yada, 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 and you want to hold that somehow against Embiid, you can. I will point out the fact that it is hypocritical and that it is also, to some extent, a weird gatekeeping exercise. And the reason that I bring it up is because Allen Iverson was not infallible. I don't know if I have to remind people, but there was a fan appreciation night. Who cares about it, Russ? People did. There was a fan appreciation night in this town where Allen Iverson and Chris Webber, remember that time? When Allen Iverson and Chris Webber showed up late, like just before tip-off, Iverson sat with his teammates out on the floor for the first quarter and then bailed, wasn't seen the rest of the night. Now, from all reports, Joel Embiid is available to the fans as much as can be, doesn't turn down autographs, has not racked up a laundry list of people complaining about his etiquette when talking to fans, when interacting with fans. Embiid has gone through a ton of tragedy. We've talked about it on the show. His younger brother getting tragically killed in an automobile accident, right? Getting hit by a car in Cameroon. And Embiid talked about it in that story this past offseason where he kind of bared his soul. And he had right after that, right? Even after he bore his soul, and you have people on Philly radio, one of them will remain nameless, even though I should flame him again, said, oh, well, this is very clearly just a PR piece. This isn't, you have to take this with a grain of salt. Guy decided to bare his soul. And was it favorable to him? Sure. Any kind of player profile like that's going to be. Every Players Tribune article ever written, by the way, is favorable to the player, even if the player didn't write it themselves. Usually it's a ghostwriter. I find it oddly hypocritical to hold Allen Iverson up as this like beacon of virtue and perfection, and then to look at a guy like Embiid who has played through a lot of these injuries, and who notably, if I remember correctly, I don't remember the exact quote, but said something to the effect of, I've played through all this. I don't deserve this shit. I've given everything to the city. I think it's hypocritical. I like Joel Embiid. I think he seems like a good human being. I think he seems like a guy who's gone through a lot of tragedy in his life. And yes, he has made a ton of money. He's made more money than I ever will, than many of you watching ever will, maybe than all of us collectively will ever make. But it doesn't mean that you just throw what he's done in his career out the window. And the idea that he is unworthy to wear the jersey that Allen Iverson wore is such complete and utter bullshit. I don't know what we're doing. That's it. Joe Fisher says, so down the road, the black jerseys will come and the road uniforms and become the road uniforms again. I don't know. We'll see it. We'll see what happens. Joe Fisher says, don't know if it's true, but they say he doesn't keep himself in game shape, so I don't know. We'll see. He looks great right now. Everything that we've seen coming out of I get it, it's team PR, but the images that we're seeing, the videos we're seeing, he looks like he's lost weight. So, we'll see. Fawcett says it's the only time that we're going to see Embiid in that jersey. It's all about reps. I don't think that's true. Okay. It's the last Sixers point. Now we're going to get to the Flyers. Should we get to the Flyers? I think we'll get to the Flyers. There was another thing that I wanted to get to, but I think we'll just go right to the Flyers. Because if I don't go right to the Flyers, I'm going to make somebody upset probably, right? Maybe. JH, by the way, good question. Embiid revenge year incoming. I would love to see Embiid go into revenge mode. I would love it. If you can get like 60 games out of Joel Embiid, and it's 60 because you load managed him, it'd be great. Let him go out and be dominant. See if the weight can stay off. We saw Zion Williamson the other day report in for the Pelicans, and he looks like he's been on Ozempic or something, but Zion Williamson looks slimmed down. We saw Luka Doncic look slimmed down. Be great for Embiid if he can keep the weight off, be obviously good for his joints, good for his body overall, and we'll see. Jim Cochran, with a good point here, says, if I recall correctly, Joel has won the same number of championships as Iverson. That is correct. Now, here's just really quickly. This is the one other thing I wanted to get to. And I'm only getting to it because it made me laugh, and then we'll get to the Flyers. So we've been talking about the national media landscape. We've been talking about how the national networks have to kind of change what they're doing, right? And that Fox Sports had a real uphill battle to fight. And they decided to partner with Barstool. And I said, I think it could actually make it could be a good business decision because even if the TV ratings aren't there, the online play that it's going to get through social is going to be impactful. And that's where Barstool tends to shine. Well, there was a unique interaction earlier this week between Greg Olsen, who has gotten rave reviews, right, as a color commentator for Fox. You got John Gordon on the other side, and you got Portnoy in the middle. Now, in the time since, Olsen has come out and said that he and Portnoy have been friends or known each other for 20 years. They rib each other. They get into it with each other. But this is one of the most notable things that I've seen on a morning show in a while on national TV. Portnoy has an issue with Olsen's hat. Let's get into it, and then we're going to get to the Flyers.
My hair this morning. a logoless hat. It looks like you're heading straight to the NLCS or something to call a game.
No, I got
Unbelievable, just straight.
So you got Portnoy. We all know how Dave Portnoy dresses. And then you got Greg Olsen. And the body language is what really threw people for a loop. Because, again, Olsen reiterated after the fact that this is a nothing burger and that they've known each other for a long time and they go back and forth with each other and it's all good-hearted fun and all that.
Hey, look here.
Hey, listen, I'm just going to be honest. If I'm going to keep getting a hard time from this show, I might just bag Monday morning. Just be like, you know what? You guys are on your own. Deal with it. Good luck.
Well, I mean,
that certainly feels a little bit more than just like the friendly banter. I could be wrong.
it was preposterous. So I will try not to.
Now,
you did bag it last week, by the way, but I'll try.
I might bag it again next week.
All right. The full clip is actually pretty interesting. You could probably find it on Twitter or wherever else. But it's interesting to see the way that there's like a back and forth. And so you kind of wonder if the somewhat controversial way that Barstool goes about doing the Wake Up Barstool show on FS1, if it's going to pay dividends in the ratings. To this point, it hasn't. But the social engagement's been good. I don't know. I just thought it was notable. And I've never seen Greg Olsen look that frustrated. I think Emmanuel Acho actually put something out there about how Greg Olsen is like the most likable guy of his size, former NFL player you'd ever meet, and that this says more about Portnoy than anything. Anyway, it was interesting. That was an interesting thing. Now, speaking of interesting, we have to talk about what the hell's going on with the Philadelphia Flyers. It is time. We have to talk about the Flyers. And I got bad news, okay? I have wanted to be able to believe that the Flyers are going to have a better year this year. I've said since the end of last season, I thought Danny Briere was going to do enough to this roster that this team was almost assuredly going to make the playoffs in the 2025-2026 season. And I'm not moving off of that yet. But through a few preseason games, I'm not feeling as good about that prediction as I did like 2 months ago. And that's largely because Sam Ersson has looked horrific in net. And Dan Vladar hasn't exactly looked great in net. And the Flyers moved Ivan Fedotov, shall we recall. Ivan Fedotov was moved to Columbus. And since he has left, he's actually been pretty solid for the Blue Jackets. Some good stuff Fedotov is doing for Columbus. And so it almost makes you wonder if the Flyers got rid of the wrong goalie. So things are frustrating right now in net. And there was a stat that came up that of all goalies who have played in the NHL, a requisite number of games, 184 goalies in total since 2000. Sam Ersson and Dan Vladar are at the bottom of that list in save percentage at number 183 and 184. And so then you have to have a conversation. All right, the Flyers had this glut of goalies last year. They had Ersson, they had Fedotov, they had Kolosov. They decided to move Fedotov. It gave them some cap flexibility. Age-wise, everything, they thought that was the guy to move. They didn't want to go into this upcoming season with either Fedotov or Kolosov as the backup at the NHL level, so they signed Dan Vladar. They had interest in Carter Hart. Carter Hart did not have interest in coming back here, which is its own thing. So the Flyers, as it's currently set up, are going to have Sam Ersson and Dan Vladar at the NHL level. They're going to have Alexei Kolosov and Carson Bjarnason at the AHL level. And then somewhere over in Mother Russia, you have Zvragin. And Zvragin looks very good. We have to be fair. Zvragin looks incredible. In fact, I will give you a statistic. Would you like statistic? I give you a statistic. Igor Zvragin has 949 save percentage, 1.66 goals against average, and a 2-1-0 record in 3 starts with SKA this season in the KHL. He has been incredible. Incredible. So Zvragin is just, I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to get too high on a guy who's super young, playing in Russia. I don't want to go there yet. But he had a great rookie campaign last year in the KHL, and he's picked things back up where he left off last year. He's been sensational. And so that maybe makes you think to yourself, oh, That's our guy of the future. And so then maybe it takes some of the sting out of the Erson and Vladar tandem at the NHL level. And I will tell you that, like, maybe the Flyers look at Zavragin and say, 2026, 27 could be the year. Or at worst, 27, 28 could be Zavragin. They want to develop Bjarnason, and Kolosov is still young enough that they could actually put time into developing him at the AHL level. And so you say, all right, if and when Sam Ersson gets hurt, we'll bring up Kolosov. Later in the season, we'll see how things shake out. If Vladar has an even passable season, maybe there's a team around the trade deadline that wants to trade for Vladar. Maybe you move Kolosov up, you have Bjarnason, and you backfill the backup netminder position with the Phantoms. I don't know. Here's what I do know. This is bad, very bad, optically, that the Flyers did not make a move at goalie in a meaningful way, and it looks like they have probably the worst goalie tandem in the National Hockey League. I mean, listen, there was a time that I thought Sam Ersson looked like he could be a legitimate starter in this league. The last 2 years have done him no favors. We can go back to Sam Ersson being the backup to Carter Hart. Carter Hart has to peace out in January of 2024, if memory serves. And then Ersson gets forced into being pretty much the guy for the rest of that season, a role that he was not suited for, ready for mentally or physically. He gets a full off season to go into the 24-25 season as the guy. Ends up 3 times with a groin injury. Ends up on the IL. Not ideal for this team at all. Bad, very bad. And so you lost Sam Ersson a few times last year, which then also led to even more confusion, disorientation, lack of development of both Ivan Fedotov and Alexei Kolosov. And then at some point you had 3 goalies that you were trying to rotate at the NHL level, which was ridiculous. Now, the good news, I guess, is that between Carson Bjarnason and Alexei Kolosov, you have 2 guys at the AHL level that you think belong there, 2 guys that are young, 2 guys that you think you could develop, and maybe one of them comes up later in the season and is the backup. Maybe going into the 26-27 season, Kolosov is up here permanently as the starter or the backup after a year of development. I don't know. But boy, oh boy, Ersson does not look good. He has not looked good so far this preseason. Vladar is one of those guys who, like, you look at what he did at the end of his tenure with the Flames, and you think, all right, there's a good enough goalie in there. And as a backup, he should be fine. Your problem is that your starter is not good enough. Your problem is that your starter is probably a legitimate backup. And so now you're going to enter a season where I think the Eastern Conference, the bottom of it at least, is pretty wide open from a playoff perspective. You're now going to go into a season with likely 2 backup goalies in net. And what's that going to mean? It's going to mean you're going to have probably the worst save percentage again in the National Hockey League, or one of the worst save percentages. And on a team that does not have a veteran-laden, dynamic blue line, that goalie is going to struggle, whoever's in net. And for a team that is trying to piece it together offensively and added talent in a Trevor Zegras, it's still not going to be enough to win 6-5 shootouts every night. It looks bad. Sam Ersson better pull the nose up on this, because to me, this is his last opportunity to prove he can be a starter in this league. And I don't even mean just a starter with the Flyers. I mean a starter anywhere. Because again, it's the second year he gets to go in as the presumptive favorite to be the starter in net for this team. If something changes here over the next few weeks and Dan Vladar becomes your starter, no offense to Dan Vladar, something has gone horribly wrong with Sam Ersson, right? Vladar is not a guy that they brought in here to legitimately challenge Ersson for the number 1 job. I will say the same thing that I said in the offseason. I thought it was a mistake for them not to go after somebody who is better than Ersson. I didn't think that there was a guy that they were going to be able to realistically go out and acquire that was a top 10 goalie, even a top 15 goalie in this league. But I was vastly underwhelmed by bringing in Vladar. Not because he's not a good backup, but because it puts you in a position to have probably 2 backup goalies. I almost would have rathered, if they were going to go this route, I almost would have said, maybe Fedotov should just be the backup. Don't even spend the money on Vladar. If you're not going to vastly improve the goalie position, do another year with one of either the Russian or the Belarusian, and Alexei Kolosov is the backup. Because otherwise, like, what are we doing here? It's not good. Not good. Jim Cochran says, Flyers and goalie issues, a tradition unlike any other. Gritty 1983 says, if it's really bad, I have faith Briere will do something. The question is, what can he do? Because they have enough goalies under contract. Like, who are you moving? I mean, if things get bad, Sam Ersson gets hurt, well, sure. Then you move him to IR, and then you go out and you acquire another goalie. Sure, I agree. But otherwise, you're going to have to ship out a goalie if you're going to try to bring one in. And who's going to take one of these goalies? Like, who wants Ersson? Who wants Vladar? Who wants Kolosov? Seems crazy. Let's see. Joe Fisher asks, says, Utah sent Ingham to the AHL. Would you take a look at him? He has 1 year left. An almost $2 million deal. No, I don't think I'd do anything. I think that what they have right now across the board is fine from an evaluation perspective right now. The only players that I really want them to look at are either players that legitimately change the floor and the ceiling of the team, which I don't think are available right now, or find a guy who is a super, super, super low-cost guy that you bring in here and you hope that the change of scenery works, but in doing so, you can ship out some salary, and I don't think it's going to happen, especially this early. Fawcett says that he thinks Vladar was brought in to push Sam. I don't think he was. I think they tried to go with the least confrontational thing they could. I really don't think they brought Vladar in here to compete. Knowlton asks about Kolosov's a Belarusian. You have the Russian in Fedotov, Belarusian in Kolosov. Maybe I misspoke. But I know he is from Belarus. Let's see. Nick Johnson over on YouTube says, good news on the Flyers. They're bad. Bad news would be they're good. This rebuild doesn't have a top defenseman, a 1C. Really hope they continue the rebuild. They're not. I'm telling you right now, if your hope is that the Flyers are going to go to the basement, that they're going to end up back in the draft lottery again, I got bad news for you. If they do, it is going to be because it was an unintentional tank. This is going to be like a Chuck Fletcher year if that's the case. They are not trying to tank and rush to the bottom to get another top pick. They want to try to compete for a playoff spot this year. And if you think anything to the contrary, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Bus Campers asks, is it too early for the Gavin McKenna push? Again, they ain't reaching the bottom. They are not trying to go to the bottom. They think that they can make a legitimate push for the playoffs. What am I going to tell you? I would love to tell you that all indications are great that the Flyers are going to make a playoff push. I've been saying for 6 months or whatever that I thought that the team would make enough adjustments that they would go to the next level and try to compete for a playoff spot. The goalie situation is untenable. This cannot be your tandem through the year if you're going to try to make the playoffs. Maybe I'll be wrong. I don't think I am, though. Bus Camper says, I want playoffs, sick of seeing the team be bad. It's fair. Nick says, if they push for the playoffs, I might need a new team. I'm just telling you, that's what I think they're trying to do. Brighton Condor says, them not trying to be at the bottom and not finishing there are two different things. That's true, but that's why I said it's more of like a Chuck Fletcher unintentional tank. Because if they think that this roster is good enough and that this goalie tandem is good enough, and it's not, but if they think that this goalie tandem is going to be good enough, at least as it currently looks, they aren't making the playoffs like this. They will have to make a change. DeGrinch says, when Ersson was backing up Carter, he had a 914 save percentage and fans were calling for him to start. Cut down his workload, he'll be better. Again, that's kind of why I wanted them to bring somebody in who was definitively better than Sam Ersson. Not necessarily a top 10 goalie, but somebody who was markedly better than Ersson, and maybe it gave you a 60-40 split. Brian Knowlton asks, speaking of Flyers, will Snow the goalie be back this week? I don't know, but we are working on many things right now. That's all I can say. The show will be back. We'll be back for the start of the hockey season. But we're working on some things, and I think at least one of the things that we're working on is something that a lot of people have been asking for a while, and we're looking forward to being able to finally bring it to them. That's all I can say. Let's see. JH asks, might it be a little too early to say it's been a dumpster fire after we've seen 2 meaningless preseason games? Maybe. I'm just saying, as of what I'm seeing right now, it's not inspiring a lot of confidence. Now, we have this. Ford asking, can we get a John Gruden on the Flyers goalie issues? I'm losing my voice. I don't know how Gruden's going to do with losing the voice. Hold on. Let me channel my John Gruden, man. Let's see. I got to get the camera to do the thing where it kind of centers in on the face. There it is, man. All right, let me tell you something, man. You got Dan Vladar. They call him Darth Vader. He's a good goalie, man. I'm telling you, man. I've seen a lot of goalies in Calgary fall on their face. Not Dan Vladar. Darth Vladar. Huh. Sam Ersson, a guy people thought should have started over Carter Hart. Carter Hart's gone. Sam Ersson, it's your opportunity. It's your moment, man. Go out there. Grab it by the puck. Don't tear your groin. Huh. All right, that's it. That's horrible. I hate myself. I don't like that at all. I'm so upset. I'm so upset. I shouldn't have done it. I should have known better. Okay. Brian Knowlton here with a very interesting Hope Press Road comes back. Stay tuned. All right. I will be back on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. But do me a favor, because it does matter. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. If you see videos pop up on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube Shorts, on Facebook, give them a like. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. But most importantly of all, do me a legitimate favor, because this actually does matter. In the grand scheme of things, it really does. I wouldn't tell you to do this if it didn't mean anything. Share the video. It could be to a friend. It could be to a family member. It could be to an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, ex-whoever. I don't care. Send it to that person. Share it directly from YouTube via like a text or something. Share it to Facebook or Twitter or wherever. For whatever reason, that actually does help. I don't totally understand why, but for YouTube's purposes, they seem to really like when that happens. So we are just going to say, share the video because it helps, and I greatly appreciate it. Now, that is all I have for today. I pretty much have no voice left, but I do appreciate everybody who was here. And I also, we have like Fawcett saying, love you. Thank you, Fawcett. Right back at you, fella. And I forget where the comment's at. It was really high up here. Let me see if I can find it. Hexram, as always, said, hi, Russ. Love you, Russ. Thanks, Hexram. I'll be back on Friday. Friday, I will also probably open the show up to calls like we did last week. Ford was the only one who called in last week. So, kind of find that spot on your calendar on Friday afternoon for the Russ Joy Show. Maybe pencil yourself in there a little bit that you're going to call into the show, and I'll get everybody set up. This is my last show as a 34-year-old. On Friday, I will come back at the ripe age of 35. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, Russ, you look like you're at least in your mid-40s. What the hell happened to you? And the answer is 4 kids happened to me. There was a time that I looked young and youthful. Now, this is not the case anymore. Tomorrow's my birthday. 35. Will I be hitting up Starbucks for my free coffee? Yes. Will I be hitting up Chick-fil-A for a free chicken biscuit or whatever? You're damn right I will. If you know of any other place that gives out free things for your birthday, let me know in the comments, because that would actually be kind of helpful. I'm all about using up the birthday rewards wherever I can, so you just let me know. Ford says I'm 46 and you look older. That ain't true. No, Ford. That is not true. Respectfully. Brian is right, by the way, saying Shady Maple. I brought this up to my kids, and they're like, Dad, can we go as a family on your birthday to Shady Maple? Forgetting, I guess, that they have to go to school. And I said no. But I said, there's nothing to stop Daddy from driving to Shady Maple himself and having Shady Maple himself on his birthday. And then my wife was like, do they have Wi-Fi there? She's like, could you theoretically work out of Shady Maple all day? And I was like, you know what? I've never thought about it, but maybe I should try. Do the Amish have Wi-Fi out at Shady Maple and what if I did a special episode of the Russ Joy Show from the smorgasbord at Shady Maple? Well, that would be something. Joe also writes, says being a Phillies sports fan is what happened to you. Don't lie, Russ. It happens to us all. That's true, Joe. It's aged us all. All right, anyway, I want to thank you all again one more time for being here today. I want to thank you for the lively comment section over on YouTube. I'll be back on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. And until then, I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a great day, everybody. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Talk to all of you on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show.